Welcome. My name is George Pearson and I run the How To Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos in my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques you'll find in various software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video though is different. This is part of a new series of longer demonstrations that I'm doing to show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish using a variety of techniques and tools. All of the images I use in these projects are in the public domain, and I've included a link to the pictures in the video description in case you want to work along using the same images. Okay, let's move on to the project. In this Photoshop Elements training, we're going to be doing kind of a ghost-like effect in here. Now, basically we're just combining two pictures. You can see both those pictures over here, plus I have them hiding in the background right there. So there's our two pictures. Just a interesting daylight shot here of this creek with this walkway on it. We're making that look more spooky. And then a nighttime shot of this girl, kind of a diaphanous skirt type thing here. So we're combining these two in a way that will give us more of a ghost-like look. Now, when I finish this, there'll be a lot more that we could do, but we'll just be taking you through just the basic steps of how to do this. Now, this uses a trick called a dispersion mask, and it's a technique. It's been used a lot. It's very, very popular on sites like YouTube, and you'll see people with things splattering off of their heads and stuff. I personally don't like that kind of artwork, but I like the technique. It's an interesting technique. So we're showing you how to use that technique, and that gives us this kind of smeary stuff out here. You can see how it has the detail from the image in it, but it's all kind of flowing out as if it's flowing off of a ghost-like aspect. There's also that the ghost is real bright and easy to see up here, and this kind of fades off as it goes down towards the bottom of the picture. So I'll be showing you how to do all of these things in this particular video. I'll keep this one up so we can refer to this if we need to. You can see over here we have several layers. There's a background layer just sitting on top of the actual foreground. There's our foreground. There's the newly revised foreground in here. And then in front of that we have our picture right there. There's the original picture. And on that we've done a couple of things. We've clipped around and masked out the girl from the background. So I have just the girl. Let me just hide that other background stuff. So there's the girl picture. We're going to be clipping out and around the girl in this, and then we're going to be combining or creating our kind of ghosty effect over here. I'll show you how to do that. Interesting technique. And they'll be doing some lighting stuff up on the right hand side, and of course working with our opacity settings, other things like that to give it more of that ghost-like effect. Okay, let's now take a look and start with our basic pictures in here. So here's our base picture. We're working with this one. I'm going to zoom in a bit here so we can get this a little larger. File and zoom in a couple of times. Now as I'm working, I'm going to be using menus as much as possible, clicking on tools as much as possible. I'm going to be staying away from using keyboard shortcuts. I think keyboard shortcuts are great and you should learn them, and that will really speed up the process, but it makes it difficult for you to see what it is that I'm doing in the video. So because of this video training, and I want you to know exactly the steps that I'm going through, I'll be staying away from keyboard shortcuts, things that you can't see, as much as possible. If I have to do a shortcut, I'll go ahead and I'll do that shortcut so you can actually see it and understand what it is. Okay, so here's our background. The first thing I always do when I'm working on a file or image like this is that I always make a copy of the background and then protect my background. We'll be doing the same thing with a figure as well. So take the background, drag it up onto the new layer button like that, and it gives you a copy of your background. I'll just hide this one now. So that's my protection, that's my safety. If I was doing anything to this layer, if I messed it up, I can always go back to my original. Now in this particular video, we won't really be doing anything to that layer, so we won't be damaging it. But I still like to have a copy, a backup copy in any case. Okay, so there's the basic picture. The next thing we need is to have the girl's image in this picture. So let me just click on that image, grab that and just drag it in. just like that. I can now get rid of that file. Okay, so we have our two pictures. We now need to resize the image. So while we're still on it here, just grab one of our control handles and just drag that on to get to be just about the size that you want. In this case, just about full height on the page. I'm doing it a little larger than full height, but somewhere around in there. It doesn't have to be exact on this. Maybe a little smaller now that I'm thinking about it. I'm just bring it down just a little bit so we can see the whole dress in there. So I want to see the bottom of the dress still in the picture. And that looks pretty good. Okay, click on the green check mark. That sets that in place. So there we go. Now we want to cut out this image, this girl, out of this picture. And we'll be making a selection to do that, a careful selection to do that. And then we'll be using the layer tool up here, and we're going to make a new layer via copy of that selection that we've done. Now when you're making a selection, notice down here we have Save Selection as an option right down there. We're going to save this selection as we go because it's going to be important. We'll go back to this if we need to. It's a difficult selection to make, so I want to be able to go back and remake this selection. Now you can use any tool that you want to make your selection, but in this case you want to be able to follow this edge carefully. Clear down around here, around the outside or inside of this lantern over to kind of bypass the lantern. We don't need this little bit of the skirt down here, so I'll just follow this part of the skirt. It's all going to fade out down here anyway. And come around to this side and up around here and back around the head again. So I want to do a little bit of that kind of an effect. Now to do that, we want to use a tool to allow us to carefully control that selection. So my favorite tool over here is the polygonal lasso tool right over there. Now there's lots of options on this down below. If a regular lasso tool, I don't think this is quite detailed enough. The magnetic lasso tool, which never really works out for me fine, and the polygonal, so I'll be using this one. Anti-aliasing on, this is going to smooth out any edges. We're doing a new selection. Now you can soften the edge by using a feathering in there, but we don't need to have the feathering for this particular technique. Okay, so we're all set then with this tool. We now need to zoom in, and I'll scroll up a little bit here. Don't worry about the image being kind of blurred out and pixelated. That's fine because of course it's going to be a ghost image anyway, so that's just fine. Okay, back to our tool. I normally start out someplace where I can see the beginning of my tool if possible, so you can come back and find the spot again. In this case I'm going to start right here where the hair goes into the shoulder. That's an easy place to spot. Now at this tool you click and then you can drag out your next point. So it's a matter of finding your next point and clicking and then dragging it again, finding your next point, and so forth. Now the key to this tool to do a real nice selection is just to take your time with it and to slowly work around, just do a click at a time. I'll do part of this right now, then I'll pause the video. I'll finish the rest off video so I don't have to sit here just watching me slowly click around this figure for hours and hours and hours. That would be very, very boring. Actually, it'll probably take me about 10 minutes, I think, just to do a careful selection, if that long. But of course, I don't want you just watching for that whole bit. So this is the trick. You're going to be just going around making these little selections. Now, if you're using the polygon lasso tool, one thing I want to warn you about is don't click too quickly. If you click too quickly, it's going to collapse the selection back on itself, and you won't have the area selected that you want selected. So take your time to do your careful selection. Now notice how the image scrolled. If you come down to an edge like we are right down here, I'm down at the bottom of the picture, I need to go past this. Just pull the cursor just past the window a little bit and the picture will automatically scroll down for you. Makes it very easy. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and take this around. I'll take it around the bottom and around the right hand side of the image, and we get it back up towards the head. I'll bring the video back up again. So I'll pause it right now, get this bottom section taken care of so you don't have to be watching me just do these little slow clicks. And then we're up around the head again, which is a little trickier. I'll bring the video back up again. And there we are, back up again. As I mentioned, the hair over here is a little bit trickier, and that's because it fades off into black out here. Nothing really to choose. So when you're working around this outside edge, you'll need to kind of just guess as to where it is. It's not going to matter that much. It's going to fade off out here anyway. But try to take whatever clues you can. Like there's a finger right here, a little bit of the arm right there, so I can kind of guess a connection in here, and then just kind of guesstimate where the figure is going to be on the right hand side. Again, it's fading off to black over here. It's not really going to matter that much. We're going to be doing even more of a fade out on that side. Same thing for the hair. You can kind of see where it is. We just kind of guesstimate around where it needs to be, and then follow around pretty close on the left hand side over here. Once you reach the end, make sure you come right back to the beginning of the line and click there. That will then close the whole selection, giving you a complete selection for this figure. There's the bottom side right in there. Okay, now let's make a new layer based upon this selection. So layer, new, layer via copy, just like that. There's our copied layer. Okay, now that we have that, we can hide that layer. That is our safety layer again. Just like I had a safety layer down here, that's a safety layer for our girl. So there we go. Okay, let's just zoom out now a little bit. Fit on screen, and I'll just readjust our size in here. There we go. So there's the image, just kind of sitting on the page, and the position is about right. I think that's pretty good. So that's phase 1 of this project taken care of. We now need to do phase 2, and that is going to be doing our dispersion effect in here and actually spreading out the image over here to the right hand side. So to do that, I want to make a copy of this layer. So grab the layer, pull it up to the new layer button just like that. There's our copy. Now work on the one that's underneath. If you want to flip those, you can like that. This is going to be our dispersion. So I'm going to double click here and rename this dispersion so I know what that is. And this will be our ghost. There we go. Now in the dispersion, we need to modify this image, change the image, and spread it out over here to the left hand side. I'll start by just clicking on the image here, grabbing the control handles, and I'll actually just kind of stretch it out like that. That gives the first part of our dispersion in there. Just kind of stretched out. Now we can come in here and modify this a little bit. We don't need the top up here. I want mostly down here in the skirt area. So let's grab our eraser tool, which is right there, and let's change the size of the eraser, or eraser rather. There's the eraser. Let's just bring it up a little bit. It's like 200 about is good for this image. It'll depend upon the size of your picture. You make sure in the background layer, I'm just going to erase the top part of that. We don't need any of that stuff, and just get rid of that arm right there. So we're doing the dispersion here on the skirt, basically. Just kind of clean that out, whatever is in behind. There we go. So there's our dispersion. Now you can smear this around a little bit, give it even more of a distorted look by grabbing your smudge tool. Again, I'll bring the brush size up back to about 200 again. That looked pretty good. There we go. And I'm just going to smear this a bit like that. And that will help with the ghosty effect. There we go. Now, to blend the left side of the image here into this a little bit better, we want to do a little bit of the smearing stuff just along the edge of this top image. That's our ghost image. And I'm just going to pull that out just a bit. And that kind of blurs that into that back image. And the blur just fades in here into the rest of the image. So we have clean here, and it begins to blur out into there. Alright, that step is now taken care of. Now we need to do the trick in here. And this is where the dispersion comes in. We're going to be doing some work with layer masks. And with layer masks, we're going to hide part of this image and then hide part of that image and use it to kind of blend these two together. So let's first see how layer masks work. And I'll just hide those. Let's go back to our original here. I'll make a new copy of this so I don't mess up with my original. There we go. There's the original. Okay, so here's our layer. You can make a layer mask by clicking on this icon right there, and that gives you a layer mask. Notice how nothing has changed. We're still seeing our image perfectly just fine. That's because white shows everything. I'm going to pull this in a bit like that. There we go. We don't need that left side at the moment. Okay, so white shows everything. If we paint into this with black, black will hide. So I'll go to the paintbrush tool here, and the size all looks good. And then let's bring up our color swatches. There we go, and just choose black right there. Okay, so white shows, black hides. Let me bring that brush size up a little bit. Back up to 200 is working out well for us. So I'll just type it in. Easier that way. So if I paint on the mask, you can see right here I'm painting on the mask. If I paint on the mask like that, the black area is hidden. It's still here, it's just hidden. It's hidden by that mask. See how it's kind of a soft edge in there? You can adjust that by adjusting the brush right here. You have several brushes. Your top brushes are hard brushes. Your soft brushes are down below. See, the soft brush kind of looks like that. There's a 200 soft. If you wanted to have a hard brush, choose one of these hard edge brushes. So I'll choose that one. And then I'll put this back up to 200 again. And it's a hard brush. You can see there's the hard brush. Same thing, if I come in here with the hard brush, you can see that hard edge now. So black is going to hide and white is going to show. And that's the main thing we need to keep in mind here, because we're going to be showing and hiding stuff off of these two images to give us that blended effect. Okay, let's just hide that again, bring these back up. There we go. Before we go further into our dispersion, let's make it a little easier to see by adjusting our background. We want to darken the background down, and we'll do that by using the levels control. Up here under Enhance, adjust lighting, and levels right there. Now this allows us to change the values in the image. Here's the overall values of our picture. Black is on this side, white is on this side. There's your middle value. These are our grays, our dark grays and so forth. If I pull this to the right, it's going to move the black point further into the grays, thereby darkening down our picture. You can see right there, it's kind of darkens everything down. The grays in here, if I move the grays, the midpoint, that will lighten that color up towards the midpoint gray. It lightens it up. Pull it to the right hand side, it darkens it down. Same thing on the white. Pull the white over, it lightens up the whites or darkens it down. So just kind of come down here somewhere like that. Gives the background a much more spooky look. We can go further still if you want to by using a blending mode and do a color burn possibly. To see what these things do for you. Darker color and so forth. So you can multiply maybe and see if any of this does anything for you. Make sure that's shown a little better there. So there's the color burn. Makes some much brighter colors. Multiply kind of darkens it down a little bit. Not too much on the darker color. I think multiply on this. So we're showing the background, and we're blending our darkened layer down onto the background layer, making it even spookier in there, spookier colors. So there we go, that takes care of the background. Okay, now as you can see here, we can see the image much better on this. We'll be bringing the opacity down on the image to make it more transparent later on. Okay, we're looking at the back part here. This is the skirt part of this. Now you saw how I could come in here and paint this stuff out. So we did up there, that was erasing it, but I can paint it out by using a layer mask. So I want a layer mask on both of these layers. So there's one there, and there's one there. Notice how if I click on the picture over here, I get that cyan outline. That lets me know if I do anything right now on here, it'll be on the picture. If I double click over here, get that cyan outline around the mask, it means I'm painting onto the mask. So I'm painting onto the mask. Now I could just come in here and just use a standard brush, but the standard brush is round. What I want to do is to kind of fade this out by using a different brush in here. So the brush I want to use is some kind of a fancy special brush. So let's take a look at our brushes. I'm going to let's do real fast save at that point. There we go. And let's minimize that, get that out of the way. Let's see how the brushes work in here. Click on brush. Here's all your brushes. I'm going to pull this up a bit so you can see it a bit better. There we go. So there's our brushes in there. Hard brushes, soft brushes, and there's some special effects, kind of dry brush things in here as well, and a few fancier brushes. Even some pattern brushes get way down below here. Now there are more than this. There's a lot more brushes. Click on this down arrow. You get all kinds of fancy brushes in here. Basic brushes, calligraphic, drop shadow, dry media. What I want is the wet media brushes at the very bottom. Here we go. And I kind of like this one here. This is the dry brush on towel. If I come off and roll back on again, there we go, dry brush on towel. So it's a real kind of a smeary brush. Also notice how it gives us a very randomized pattern in here. That's what I want. I want that randomized pattern. Now when you have your brushes, you can adjust this. Click on brush settings, and you can come in here and you can adjust this even further. If I increase the scatter in here, it's going to scatter those around a bit and get more of a randomness as I'm putting in the brushes. And same thing on spacing. This is going to be, you can see right down here, if I pull the spacing in, they're a lot tighter. If I pull spacing out, they're spread further out. So a little bit of spacing in there, and then scatter kind of scatters them around a little bit, makes it more random. So let's bring both of those up a little bit. Now the hue jitter is going to change the color a bit. Just kind of move it around a little bit from your basic hue. We'll be using black, so hue is not going to matter. We also could do a fade. I don't really care about fade in this instance. And you can adjust your roundness if you want to, but I'll leave all these things just a little bit up on those two settings. Okay, let's now bring back up the original. And there we go. See, there's the brush. It's real small. So I need to change that brush size. Here's our size. Let's try 200 again. And see, I think that's pretty good. So I'm on the mask. I should still have black, and black is going to hide. So if I click in here, you can see how I'm getting just some little dark spots in there, and that's beginning to hide this thing. Now it's not giving me as solid of a look as I would like, so I need to adjust this a bit better. Opacity is 100, that's good. Let's check our brush settings again. Maybe if I bring the spacing down, let's try that. That's better. You need to just tweak these a little bit. See, so as I come in here and I paint in onto my mask up there, I'm painting on black, and what it's doing is it's just hiding the image a bit. So I'm using this just to kind of break the image up. And break up the edges so it just begins to fade out. Now we're going to do more on this as well. We want to get kind of nice wispy stuff happening on this outer edge. Looking pretty good. Let's now come up to our mask up here. I want to do a little bit of this on the edge here. And that just blends those two images together. There it goes. It's kind of just fading out now. And we're doing it all with this mask. Now, the nice thing about the mask is I can always go back and adjust this. If I wanted to bring all that back in again, I'll just paint white over this and it all comes right back in. White will fix everything. I'm going to just come in here and kind of clean up whatever is over in here. There's a bit of stuff around there. That's in behind there. You can see right there. That's all stuff in behind it. I just don't want to have any of that showing through. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, we can blur this out a bit. It's kind of spotty in here. I want to blur that out a little bit. Make sure we're on the mask. And filter, blur, Gaussian blur. See there, it's blurring out that image for us. We can go real blurry if you want to. There's the original and there's the blurred out. So that gives us a kind of ghosty effect in there. Now, I still have a little bit of it in this one. I'll have to do a hand blur here because I don't want to blur this whole image. I only want to blur this area in there. So there's our background. That's blurring it out as it goes on that side, so that's good. Again, that's the Gaussian blur filter applied to the mask, not applied to the image. Okay, up here, we want to do a few things on this. I want to fade out this right side, and we'll do that with a paintbrush, again, on our mask up here. And I'm going to blur out that edge right there. That's this bit in here. So we'll adjust that. Go over here to the smudge tool, and we have two more options here. We have a blur tool right there and a sharpen tool. You want the blur tool. Look at our brush. You want a soft brush. So go back here to our default brushes, and a soft large brush. Soft 200 is about perfect. Make sure you're on the mask up here. And I'm just going to kind of blur that out a bit. Now, it may take a little while to do this. It's a slower effect. Because here, as I'm kind of going over, just kind of rubbing around in here, it's softening up and blurring that area where the overlap was. And that gets rid of that kind of speckly look. Okay, so there we go. She's kind of fading out now onto that side. We could fade a little more out in here possibly. And I want to fade out around the outside edges. So we're going to do more stuff on this mask. I want to have a soft brush. So go back here to our brushes. And let's change this to our default brushes. And let's find that 200 soft edge. That should do it. Maybe a 300 soft edge, a little larger. And again, we're painting with our black color still. And if I just kind of paint in on this side, it's going to soften up the image. I'm just kind of using just the edge of that brush because the edge of that brush is a soft edge. Now we're seeing a little bit in here of the original image. That's right down below here. So let's go down to this one. And I'm going to just come in here and paint over that whole edge in there. Oh, I was on the wrong layer actually. Let me just undo that one. Make sure we're on the mat. There we go. Same effect as you can see. So it's increasing my mask on this side to hide that image in behind. So all I already care about is this part of that. Let's go back up here to this mask. Make sure that you're on that cyan outlines here on the mask. And I'm just going to come in here and tap in a little bit on the edges again. And that gives us our faded out edge. Looking good so far. Now we can bring down the visibility in here. Go back onto the regular part of the image, and let's start with the background. Go to opacity, pull that down a bit. Somewhere around halfway through is pretty good. In there somewhere. Let's go to our image and let's bring her opacity down a little bit so you can just kind of see through her there. Not too much, just a little bit of see-through on that. And we're just about done. The last thing you may want to do is you may want to add more to this to fade it out even more. You can do that by doing more of this masking, even using a larger brush and masking around in here if you want to. But this gives us that kind of faded out effect, and that dispersion trick, that's that secondary layer that we stretched and smeared, and then we adjusted that with our layer mask. That gives us that wispy, ghosty kind of effect in there. Now beyond this, it's really up to you how far you want to take this. If you want to come in here and play around with the settings on this, that's fine. You can come in here, for instance, and you can do some other tricks up here. I'm just going to go through this and see what we get. Looking at the blending modes, let's try our lightning blending modes. Screen, kind of strange. Overlay doesn't do us any good. Soft light, hard light. Sometimes these things will have a nice effect. It depends on the image and what's in behind. Looks like none of these are really working for us on the blending modes. So we'll leave that as is. Let's look at our levels on this image so we can tweak the levels just a little bit. Enhance and adjust lighting and levels. And we're up here again. We're on the main image, on the image side, not the masking side. There's our levels on this one. So take the black and you can pull the black up a little bit. See how that darkens down? It darkens the dark part of the image down. In this case, the dark part is the right-hand side, and that helps us to blend in that right-hand side of the background a little bit. The right side is going to lighten up the highlights just a touch. See, most of the image is in this area here, so by pulling these in, we can get into a little better contrast. Then you can come in here and you can shift around the midpoint a little bit. That's your midpoint values until you have a good look. Looking good. The last thing I think I'll do now is to bring our transparency down just a little bit more. We don't want her too apparent in here because of course she's a ghost. And there we go. So there's our ghost using that dispersion trick. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward, and the real trick of the whole thing really is in how you expand and blur out the copy of that skirt area, and then use the layer masks in here to give us that kind of a wispy effect. So there you go. That's how to make a dispersion ghost. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.